is 7 p.m. I'll call common council meeting to order. We have a roll call, please.
Hyder.
Here.
Tucker.
Here.
Reamer.
Here.
Gallo.
Here.
Banker.
Here.
Godfrey. Soren.
Here.
Cliff.
Here.
Capricorn.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious and loving God, we ask your blessing upon this meeting. All those here who are present, the leaders in our community, let your peace rest upon them. Let your insight be upon them, and let peace reign in our midst. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
All right. Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second.
Moved by Doug, second by John. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. No one signed up for public comment. Moving on to accepting informal reports from standing committee and staff. Is there a motion to approve the vote?
I'll make the motion to approve this resolution.
Oh, second.
Motion by Steve.
No.
You got your name tags backwards, by the way.
Oh, it's true. Yes.
Blow her some money.
He does. He just looks at nature.
So, motion by Dan, second by Steve. Any discussion on informal reports and standing? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving or accepting informal reports from standing committees and staff, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next is the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve consent calendar as published?
Motion to approve as published.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Ellen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar as published, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Moving into our agenda items, first we have the alcohol beverage license application, a Class B liquor license through the end of June 2025 for La Margarita Ripon LLC at 102 East Fond du Lac Street. Adam would like to explain the change here.
Naomi, would you like to explain the change here?
Love to explain this. On this one, El Charro was actually owned by two people. One of them is going to be backing out, which had the El Charro part. And so they're going to now be La Margarita. Is that right? I think so. I probably butchered it, but anyways, they're going to be taking over. They've paid for the license, they've done everything. They've signed a new lease with Mr. Miller over there at the old Miller's Tavern. Nothing on the menu's been changed, everything's basically going to be the same. We do have 2 extra licenses in this city right now that are available. And at this point, I've been told Benny with El Charro has not responded, so he has not relinquished that license. So it'll technically still be his until June 30th, but it'll just go back to the city afterwards because he won't be renewing it.
So for clarification, the
Yeah.
2 licenses at the same address.
Technically, there's only one. We just can't get the actual written letter.
Okay. Ellen and Mark.
I move that we grant the Class B liquor license through June 30th for La Margarita LLC in Ripon.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'd like, it's marked township and governing municipality, just as a note for record.
Well, on the application, they marked it wrong.
In Bible 14.
Missed that.
So we have the motion by Alan, second by Doug.
Oh.
I didn't see it.
I didn't hear that.
Well, that was the note.
Okay.
That I would amend my motion to include the correction in section 14 of the license application.
All right, you do that?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay. And you have a comment?
No, I don't have the account anymore, sorry.
Okay. And, go ahead.
So did you say that we have 2 licenses left in the city, or that there will be only 1 after we approve this?
After you approve this, there actually, I guess technically there would be 2, but he still has that. It's still open, it's still out there, he's got his name, we just don't have it in writing that he's relinquishing it. Does that make sense? You know, when somebody moves, or it's just like when Dave moved to the other facility, he didn't relinquish that one, but he did reapply to the new one. If he wanted to relinquish off the old property, he could have sent us a letter, hey, I'm relinquishing this license, giving it back to the city, and we could have, you know, moved on with that. At this point, I don't have anybody standing in line either. It's only, you know, till June 30th that it'll actually expire with Ben.
A condition of any liquor license is a right to the premises. By this split of issuing that license, the former lease that had hold El Charro under that organization is no longer valid. Therefore, the license is no longer valid at that establishment, as they no longer have a right to the premises. This basically jumps over it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the alcohol beverage license application for Class B liquor for La Margarita Ripon LLC with the change in box 14, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Next is a pay application for the Tiger Street Bridge Removal Project. This is pay application number 3 for the amount of $71,754.45.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment.
I'll second it.
Motion by David, second by Doug. Doug?
Did we come in on budget with this?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on budget with it. I think there was no change orders noted on it, and there's still a $12,000 retainage, so they will be back in the spring to make sure that grass grows and everything's fine.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving pay application number 3 for the Tiger Street Bridge Removal Project, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Next is a pay application for the Ripon DPW Facilities Project. This is pay application number 1 in the amount of $1,264,785.88.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Ellen. Any discussion?
I can just add, so this is the first pay application for the project. There is a summary of change orders on the back, so there's a log, so that'll come in. So obviously, there's a few change orders here, things we've deleted and things we've added. Most of the changes are minor. The one large change order that we had so far was with soils. So we had a bid quantity that worked out in our favor to lock up that price. But as Alan can explain better than me, I'm sure, during the initial excavation, there was a significant amount of topsoil collector that had to be excavated out. And so that was $77,783. That was the change order. Other than that, the project is pretty much on schedule and on dollar amount from the bid amount. So just wanted to make note of those as the net change so far.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving pay application number 1 for the Ripon DPW Facility Project, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Thank you. Next up is a resolution establishing building permit fee schedule. As you want to start off the discussion here?
Yeah, so a couple things to note here. So by ordinance, the common council is to set building permit fees from time to time. Looking back in the history of building inspection, building permit fees, the common council has not done that for many years. I believe that the practice stopped and there was just contracts signed that had fee structures that were then charged out, and it wasn't an annual review, it was just essentially whatever was being put in the contract. So the council hasn't, in my review of it for at least 8+ years, adopted a resolution establishing building permit fees. That is something that we need to look at annually, biannually, just more regularly, like we do all of the other fees that the city charges as regular fee schedule, right? So the city worked with the new building inspection service company, MSA, to put together a comparable fee schedule that was similar to the old one, to kind of not to create less confusion, because if you can really change up the structures and whatnot. So we tried to really just mimic what was out there and tie back the inspection fee amounts to the level or the number of inspections anticipated for that type of work. We then looked at example building permits that have been written in the last year and compared them with the new fee structure to say this is what was charged out versus this is what the new fee schedule would charge out for that same work. So there are examples here. Every permit is different, can be subtly different, and the fee structure for each project can vary based on what the project entails, right? But ultimately, the goal is to cover the inspection amount and have some additional revenue coming to the city. So what you have in front of you is a resolution establishing building permit fees. You can see kind of a comparison between what was charged previously for certain permits versus what we charged under this, and some of them do increase, some of them decrease. So it's kind of all over the place in terms of, like I said, what somebody's doing, whether or not there's going to be a permit increase or decrease. But I would say the larger projects and the more complicated ones obviously get charged more, and your smaller projects, you just general maintenance projects of the house will likely receive a reduction. With that, sorry, I'll just add that there are 2 ordinances behind this, because in the review of everything, we noted that while the ordinance says a resolution has to be charged or passed to establish it, further on in the ordinance hanging out there were a couple charges in the actual ordinance. We can talk about those in a minute, but those don't reflect what we would normally charge, and they're wildly under. I think one of them was like 11 cents per, with a minimum charge of $1 or something. So for electric, and that was just, yeah. So, so we can start with the resolution for the fees.
I just want to point out, I did some very rough, quick math on the 8 or so permits that were pointed out. It looks like a couple of them went up by about $99, one went up by about $150, then a couple went down by about $57, $48, and $12, and then another one went up by about $200. But those changes in percentages are somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10% increases, and the decreases were on some of the smaller projects. Those are more like 50% decreases. So just to anyone out there that's listening, some of the increases are, it looks like for some of the larger projects, you're looking at 5 to 10% increases, but for the smaller projects, the examples that we were given are 40 to 50% less than what they would have been under the previous schedule.
remodel permit so much more than the bigger projects? If you look at it, you can see that it's quite a bit more. It's going to stifle people remodeling their homes in Ripon, I believe.
It comes down to the level of inspection needed for the work, right? So obviously remodels incorporate a lot more than just, say, replacing windows or, right? It's the equivalent of not building new, but getting as close as you can to doing that. So, you know, the intensity and the duration of projects, the intensity of inspections relate to charge. So you may need a couple inspections for a remodel, right?
You still need it for a regular house.
Exactly, but that's reflected in the fee schedule.
I move we authorize the resolution establishing the building permit fee schedule.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Ellen, second by Mark. Further discussion? John?
I'd just like to say, we should remember that under the old inspection company, the old numbers worked. We didn't have to raise them. That's the reason why we didn't raise them. It wasn't costing the city any money for her to do it. And now with the new inspection service, I can see that we're gonna fall behind, and that's why we're raising the rates. And I can't be in favor of anything like that. I think it's wrong.
So I'd just like to look at the old ordinance on the back side here that we're going to maybe repeal tonight. Building alliteration, examination fees for alliteration plans of existing buildings and structures undergoing remodel shall be computed on the basis of 3 cents per square foot affected at minimum $40. I will submit to you that doesn't even come close to covering costs to even walk out there. So everyone says, I've heard it all the time, government should be run like a business. This is how you run a business, by charging fees that are appropriate to cover our costs. Okay? That's all I want to say. Thank you.
John?
We have to remember the inspector was taking a certain percentage of that and the rest was going to the city. So it cost the city really nothing for that inspection. And now, every time and that's got to be the reason we're raising the rates.
Any further discussion?
Billed by the hour depending on what they're doing. So,
But they're doing it, they're not just
so-
sitting there.
No, they're doing work, right? They're holding office hours, they're going out doing inspections. They've been here for 2 weeks, right? So it's a part of to cover those costs, right? That's the goal in establishing the fee structure.
Just to help Jolene out, excuse me, under the old contract, when the inspector was in the office, she wasn't billing out office hours. She got paid with every permit she issued, she got paid. Now with the new inspection company, that person will be sitting there and she will, I think it's a lady, she will bill out, we'll get billed for those office hours. Where before we weren't getting billed.
But on the contrast to that, these permit fees that we're collecting come to the city, and we pay those hourly wages out of what we collect.
Correct. That's why you're raising them, because you need to generate more money. Under the old contract, we didn't have to raise them for 8, 9 years, whatever it was.
But not all of them are raised. Some of them are lowered,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not that everything's getting raised. The things that take more time and energy are reflected in maybe a 5% increase. and the things that we were charging 50% more that took little to no work, right?
Right, but that was,
That where the former contractor was making more money on small projects that weren't requiring inspections. We're now lowering those because those are the projects that most people are doing, right?
we as a city, we're still collecting money on those higher fees.
At a 90-10% split, right?
Depending
Yeah.
on the amount of
Yes,
money.
$10,
Depending
right.
when it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And to follow up on Mark's point on items that had the 5 to 10% increase, most of those are large projects, like building a new home, that's a $400,000 project. They're seeing a $200 to $300 increase in their, or not even that, $100 to $200 increase in their permit fee on a $400,000 project. So in the full scale of the project, $200 is negligible.
It's still $200. Where we didn't have, last year, we didn't have to do that. We were making money on it.
But also on this new fee schedule, when you have to fix a window on a house, or you have to put new siding on your garage, or not siding, but a roof on your new garage, your permit's now $60 where it was $150.
Isn't the other piece of this that this company will actually be doing the inspections? That wasn't always being done before. And I think we're paying for that service now so that it will actually be done.
John?
I'd like to know where your source is.
Me,
Okay, give me an example.
I've talked about this repeatedly. The fire district is a fire hazard. I had to beg to have her come up and inspect. She wouldn't even return my calls. So I had to call
So I will
Adam.
remind you that the decision of who the inspection company has already been made. This is a discussion on establishing the fee schedule.
But I'm happy to share with him that these are my personal experiences.
Right, but to keep it,
Right, I'm not gonna, that's fine, I'm not gonna argue. I know what you're saying, Mayor. I agree.
so is there any further discussion on the resolution to establish a fee schedule?
I think at this time, we should hold off on this and see what the new company is really going to charge people. Because we really don't know.
However, we need to set a fee schedule for them to charge to people.
I disagree with Steve. I think we approve this with maybe requesting that it be brought back in a year for us to review. If you're not happy with it, let's see how it works.
And I will note that it is my intention as well as city administration to review this with the annual fee resolution.
I know we get a monthly report, or we did. Could we get just a plain black and white money that came in on permits and the billing hours that, the money that went out? Could we get that monthly? Then we could just look at it every month. 1,000 came in for permits and 1,000 went out for billing.
I think that report would be fairly
Yeah,
easy to generate.
we gotta get into a rhythm of getting permits out and charging them and getting the right fee schedule, because right now we're in no man's land. We don't know what to charge because there hasn't been a resolution established for over a decade.
And also, just want to note that you want to look at a longer time frame, because permits are charged today, but the work's not done for 6 months. And the inspections take place that entire 6-month window. So well, I agree that it should be a monthly report. If you look at it on a year-by-year basis, you're going to get a better picture of how that permit fee is related to what the inspection cost is.
Yes, all of it will be tracked and we will request reports monthly be placed in the common council agenda.
So just to clarify, as far as annually reviewing these, because we have a resolution for annual fees, we can assume that if we pass this resolution right now that's on the table, it would be included on the annual review, correct?
It'll be in the annual budget
Yeah.
every year going, because I think technically we're supposed to pass some of these before December 15th in the ordinance, so it'll be done before that.
I think it'll be just like when we review the parks, shelter stuff, it'll all be at the same time.
That would be my intention to include it with that group.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? One last time, any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on a resolution establishing City of Ripon building permit fee schedule for 2025.
I'll make a motion.
We already have a motion, just roll call vote.
Sorry.
Yes. Schatzinger?
Yes.
Weaver?
No,
Gallus?
Yes.
Banker?
Yes.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Split?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance to amend section 18.06.030, building permit fees. And you'll see in your packet that this was the ordinance that had extraneous fees that we weren't really looking at for the last 8 years anyhow. And this would all revert back to the fee schedule. So this is housekeeping.
I'll move to adopt ordinance to amend section 18.06.030 building permit fees.
A second.
Motion by Mark, second by Alan. Discussion? One more time, any discussion on this ordinance to amend? We'll have a roll call vote on ordinance to amend section 18.06.030 building permit fees.
Iverson?
Yes.
Schatzinger?
Yes.
Weaver?
no,
Gallus?
Yes.
Banker?
Yes.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Split?
No.
Motion carries.
All right, similarly, next is ordinance to amend section 18.08.020 electrical code permit fees.
I move we adopt the ordinance to amend section 18.08.020 electrical code permit fees.
I will second.
Motion by Ellen, second David.
yeah.
David's got the second. Steve?
Isn't that included in the building permit?
It is not.
Electrical?
It is not. This is more housekeeping.
So it's above and beyond charge?
No.
No, this is removing the reference to charges in this section. This is more housekeeping following up on former resolution.
This strikes from the ordinance the wording, a fee of 10 cents per outlet shall be charged for the permit with a minimum fee of $1, so that the fee schedule as passed supersedes and governs the work done under this ordinance. So now we're not relying on the wording of this ordinance here, we're relying on the fee schedule that we can revisit as a council yearly and change and adjust and lower the rate as needed as we see the work and the need come in.
I'm a little bit, does this cover changing light fixtures? Because the way it reads, no electrical wiring or other equipment shall be installed or altered without first securing a permit. And then it goes on to say that repairs of broken or defective sockets, switches, or base receptacles may be made without permit. It doesn't say anything about light fixtures in your house.
But
My reaction would be, it doesn't say light fixtures. It
should say
said light fixtures are gonna make you get a permit for it.
Right, but
They don't say that.
it says no electrical wiring or other equipment shall be installed. or altered. It should say, except that light fixtures, repairs or replacements of broken or defective sockets.
Oh, Mayor?
Yeah.
I think what this is saying, no electrical wiring or equipment shall be installed or altered without first securing a permit from the building inspector. That's new work, except that repairs and replacements of broken or defective sockets may be made without a permit. Okay, so you have that old switch in the basement that's not working? Well, shut the power off to that circuit, make sure it's off, and just fix it. If you're not competent, get someone who is to replace it. You don't need a permit for that. Likewise, if you want to put a new light in your kitchen, you may do so. Okay?
doesn't.
If it's like a plug-in thing, and you're just hanging it in, well, you could do that. I agree that's a little bit off, but I think it's clearly, you're just fixing what you have.
To John's
It's a
point,
fair question
I think
to
he's got a fair point about fixtures, but most fixtures have sockets, right?
No,
No?
Most-
LED?
most fixtures,
No.
older fixtures, you gotta take it off,
Yeah,
you
you
gotta
gotta
put the
hardwire
wire
it.
nuts on. Yeah, it's
There's not a
hardwired.
light socket in there with a replaceable bulb?
No,
Not if you're changing the whole
we're
thing.
talking about the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole light fixture.
Some people change light fixtures like underwear.
And for example, a new LED disc light is hardwired to the outlet. And if that burns out, you're changing the fixture every time. It's not like changing the bulb. So
Right.
I definitely see your point on this.
Yeah, I also see the point. What's interesting though is that the proposal while we're looking at this is to just make sure that what was just passed, the fee, it doesn't, conflict with it. I mean, I guess my question would be, if we didn't change it by taking out this fee part, we would then have something that's not correct. Like, I don't know how we would, how do you implement, but I guess my larger question then, furthermore, is that maybe someone should be taking a look at the wording on this, because I think you have a good point, but we're not changing, like, this is what was written. Like, the only proposal that's been changing is what you're crossing off, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can add something.
So,
Are you proposing, John, to get rid of or other equipment?
no, I think
No.
we're proposing to add
Yeah.
light fixtures to
To
the
that
exemption.
laundry list?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. So I see two approaches. We could pass this as proposed tonight and come back and revisit that. Or we could change the language all at once.
Just
change
change
it,
the language.
yeah, change it tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
Here's a replacement of broken or defective socket. Light fixture, inserted right there.
Yeah, that would work. We don't have a motion on this, right, do we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I made the motion.
We do, so we need to accept that amendment
Yep.
to rewrite it to include defective sockets, comma, light fixtures, comma, switches, or base receptacle.
Yep. I'm good.
Well, it's written that,
First,
So I'll just say it.
what's that?
This is
they're
adopted,
electrical terms, equipment has to do with power.
but this is an electrical code, right? And I don't know if it applies to fixtures, right?
Right.
Maybe Alan wouldn't.
Fixture's a fixture,
But
equipment
so-
would be like anything that power producing type.
Yeah.
Correct, but
Yeah.
defect, or sockets, switches,
But his point is that it requires rewiring or screwing the little knobs on there.
but
Yeah.
He doesn't want, so that's the point. It's like a light switch. So I'm comfortable adding light fixtures and make it very clear to the common citizen, they don't have to worry about
Right.
getting a building electrical
Yep.
permit.
I would surmise that the whole sentence is about making incidental repairs
Correct.
to your system for things that are readily disconnected and reconnected.
Right.
That's what it's, so
That's
there
it.
could be a light fixture, it would be a receptacle, it would be a switch, it would be a porcelain lamp holder. It's not, I would not interpret it to be going through the house and refixturing the entire house because you're remodeling.
Correct.
Oh, wait.
And it clearly does state repair or replacement of the proposed light fixture.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with that modification.
And as a licensed building inspector, are you comfortable with that wording?
Yes, I am.
Any further discussion?
What I mean, doesn't this go back to, the only reason we're looking at that wording is because we happen to be looking at the fee, and so now that was brought to our attention. Isn't this a kind of a bigger question as to maybe a review of
Over
everything
here,
related to?
let's just get it done.
Yeah.
We just get it done. The bigger, a lot of these codes are adopted by recommendation of the Department of Safety and Professional, DSPS, right? The services. So we are obligated to adopt electrical code, state building code, on and on and on. A lot of these probably are form ordinances that came from the 90s into the 2000s, and most of them haven't been updated for the last 15 years. So this may not be in form with the model ordinance of 1992, when we probably passed it, but adding that today, is fine. But the pieces are in place from a compliance perspective of adopting the building codes throughout the entire code.
But also to your point, it's not a bad idea to review codes from time to time.
Yeah.
And this just happens to be in front of us tonight, so we're
Yeah.
getting it. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll have another roll call vote on the ordinance to amend section 18.08.020 electrical code permit fees with the change in the fees as well as adding light fixtures to the first sentence.
Iverson,
Yes.
Costigan,
Yes.
Reamer,
Yes.
Gowers,
Yes.
Benger,
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Next up is a update on the shared taxi, shared ride taxi service.
So in your packet, I did provide just kind of a brief update for shared ride taxi service. We talked about this, I believe, in November, and haven't revisited it since. So I wanted to share with you some additional information regarding demographic data and recommendations for this service and potentially changing some service hours. I believe Councilperson Sorensen did ask for demographic data from Broncap, and we tried to kind of go back a couple years to give you an idea of what user types, which you then can kind of categorize into demographics, who's using the service, right? So in 2023, you have the data. 2024, you have the data with the 2-year average. So when you look at the overall utilization of the service, 68% of the rides are being provided to seniors and or individuals with disabilities. So we're categorizing the senior, the disabled, and the agency disabled. The agency rides are kind of outside of your normal ridership in that they come from a facility, like a residential care facility or something of that nature, and they are reimbursed at a higher rate because it's being covered by Medicare or that provider. So it's a little bit, we just increased the fee for that, but overall you can see that 68-70% or so is being used by seniors and disabled individuals. You have in there like parcel, which is just package delivery, things like that. That's really not much, but adults and students make up around 29%, right? So that's the majority of the rest of the user. Just wanted to remind you of the decline in ridership since 2019. Obviously, COVID-19 impacted the service with a drop of about 14,000 rides per year. We have since increased that back up to around 30 to 28,000, but from peak ridership to today, we are down around 10,000 rides, okay? So the goal was to try to understand what changed, right? What demographic or what area did we start to decline in ridership? And that obviously has placed a higher financial pressure on the service because we just aren't producing as much revenue from those 10,000 rides. Pre-2019, the data that was tracked by the provider was not as sophisticated, and we don't have clear demographic trends like I just showed you for the past couple years. But we do have information on fares categorized, and what you can see is that adult fares and children fares, which are on the top, used to be 22. They have declined down to around 15%, and elderly or senior disabled rides, which used to be 33%, are now 43%. So generally speaking, what we would say is, the adult and those children rides are the ones that have dropped off. That ridership has over time increased in senior disabled and increased in agency, but declined in those other areas. The issue with that is that the senior and disabled ridership fares are the lowest. So in the past, when you had a stronger ridership of adults and children paying $1 more per ride, doing that in bigger quantity, it helped offset, some of those lower rates for seniors and disabled individuals. With the decline in that, it is again just amplified the financial issue, right? Because you're doing more rides and charging less, right? So, we can sit here and try to understand why there's been a decline of 10,000 rides. There's factors that happened in COVID that people have now implemented as everyday life that maybe they relied on the service for, whether that's telemedicine, whether that's the food delivery program, from grocery stores, who knows, right? But we have seen about a 10,000 per year decline in rides. And in that time, we haven't adjusted the service. We've run it almost exactly the way we were running it pre-COVID, okay? In terms of number of hours. And that's, like we've been discussing, financially not necessarily helping, right? We really wanted to dig into some of the monthly averages of when are people using the service, right? And this graph is a summary of months from this year. So we tried to take a sample of June, July, September, October, November of this past 2024 to see where are the rides. And obviously, the schedule being that it starts at 7 in the morning and ends, at around 7 o'clock at night. That is going to be your main ridership Monday through Friday. But you can see, the hours starting off there from midnight to 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We're only, doing per month, 10 to 20, 10, 6 rides per hour in those time slots. Or sorry, total for the month, sorry. So you're just not getting the ridership at those late nights and on Sundays after 2, 3 o'clock. So your core service is clearly from 7 in the morning through probably around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? So I just wanted to provide that information to you to see, there are hours we're out there and the taxi's out there and they're doing 6 rides. There are hours they're out there, they're doing 225 rides. So you can see when it's most being used. The current hours are this. This is sort of the matrix of hours and number of drivers, with a kind of estimate of how many hours there are, what the cost is per year to operate it, kind of what we anticipate in fares, and what our city share would be. So you can kind of see those hours that we have the less utilization are Friday into Saturday, Friday night into Saturday morning, Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then Sunday after 1, 2 o'clock. Starts to decline. And the numbers here are number of drivers that we generally have out in that time. So obviously when we're doing 200 some rides at 10 o'clock on Mondays, we have 4, sometimes 5, 6 drivers out there. These are general minimum targets based on service demand. The general recommendation is to remove hours if we were to make a change in 2025, to remove the hours after 7 to 8 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, and after 1 o'clock on Sunday. So, the biggest, if you just compare the two, where there's now blacked out there, those hours would be removed. It'd be about an 18% reduction in service hours per week, and about a 7 or 8% reduction in driver hours. So not as many driver hours, but operating hours would be less. That would equate to about $29,000, $30,000. That is what those hours are costing us. About $30,000 a year to run these hours. And we're getting, 0.46, 0.3, 0.44, 0.85, 0.6, less than, but it's costing $30,000 to do that, okay? So we have a contract with Brown Cab. We continue to talk with them regarding changes to the system or the service. Ultimately, I've asked if they would require an additional hourly rate increase, and we've worked through these hours and gotten this data from them. These are what I would say the lowest hanging fruit to reduce and start saving some money on the service. Obviously, there are some drawbacks to those hours being cut, but overall you can see the data in front of you and when it's being used, how it's being used, and by who it's being used. So if you would like to proceed with any changes, you are required to schedule a public hearing. We would post the public hearing notice with the proposed changes, and we can do that as soon as next council meeting. Certainly we can continue to explore alternate funding options, and then if anything does change, we can continue to work with Brown Cab. Ultimately, any more large-scale service changes would occur down the road when we rebid. So we would have conversations about how this impacts things over the next couple of years, and then through bidding, have a better expectation to the contractor of what service we're going to provide, in what hours and in what time frame. So it's up to the council if you want to make any further changes to the service in 2025. You don't have to. We've passed everything. We have made some additional changes this past year, and that agency fares are increasing, not by amount that will offset any deficit. We have put money into the taxi fund from the general fund, but if we want to begin tackling some of the deficit or lessening the exposure of a deficit, these are some of the decisions that we would recommend or are the low-hanging fruits.
Do we need to make a motion to have a public hearing, or do we just do that?
I don't know if generally speaking in the past when we've done fare increases, I think we've talked about them and then the direction has been we'll have a public hearing. You certainly can make a motion to set a public hearing. And then that's when the official action takes place after the public hearing.
I move that we set a public hearing for January 27th, 2025 during the council meeting to discuss proposed changes to the taxi schedule.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Ellen, second by Doug. Discussion?
Yeah, I was just wondering, does the Everly take in anything for the late nights on Friday and Saturday?
They have like a reimbursement program that they work with. When we talk to Brown Cap, they do, I think, reimburse those rides, but they are not, in terms of the city funding, they are not covering anything there in terms of our cost. So they may be covering the ride for the individual,
Right.
but it's still based on the number of hours we're out there. These hours are costing around $30,000 a year. So.
Who's gonna take them home, the police?
No, there's a ride service. There is a ride service. The League of Women Voters had our annual lively issues, and transportation was the topic of discussion for a local issue. And there is, I had brought it up on Facebook, there is a service that gives people rides home at bar time. And it's free, but you can give a donation.
Oh, that's good.
Do we have the right, let's just say at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Monday, we have 4 drivers. Do we have the right to just cut it to 3 and see what happens?
Yeah, so in other scenarios, I kind of did that, right? If you look at the data and you say, well, if you eliminated 1 driver per hour, what ends up happening is your cost can really start to reduce, because that's $32 right there. That driver and that car is costing you to be out there. What you're going to find is you start eliminating that, you're getting a little too far away from the original contract of hours that were bid on, and Brown Cap's going to say we're not making enough money to continue to charge you this. We have to increase your hourly rate, right? But that would be the next sort of study when we rebid it, to say, look, we're going to operate from Monday through Friday these hours, and you say in those hours we want to have 3 drivers max during that time. Then you can bid it out and give them a better shot, at putting an accurate number together for their cost. We certainly can ask Brown Cap to not overstaff. That's another aspect of this. What you'll see in those cases, John, is if you start pulling drivers off at those times, your wait times will grow drastically, right?
It's ripping them.
Yeah, no, but when the service standard that has been set is I call and they're within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You may now get to a point where you have to call a day in advance, or you have to schedule your ride. And so you can see how many rides are going there, and yeah.
Next question. Okay, $32 an hour. How much does the driver make, plus who pays for the gas?
So all of that is, all the operational costs are factored into that, right? So that's driver pay, insurance, gas, everything is brown cab there, maintenance of the vehicle.
Okay, they get gas, they use a brown
Yep.
cab
Yep.
charge card or whatever?
Yep, we just,
Okay,
yep.
but what'd you say a driver makes? Did you say?
I
You don't know?
I don't,
Okay.
you know, but I know that statewide, one of the challenges of operating has been the cost of the driver, where they used to maybe make $10 or less an hour. $16+ an hour, I believe, is where, you know, where the wages had to go to get drivers. So don't quote me, you can maybe look at brown cab if they've tried, or running, if they've tried to hire recently, they may post, you know, looking for drivers. So, but it's increased in terms of the hourly rate, definitely.
Steve?
We own the 3 cabs, right?
So the city owns 4 vehicles.
4 of them.
They have all been paid for 80-20 split, so 80% federal government, 20% city. So those are all funded, and with those, you know, we are required to operate an ADA compliant service. So those vans are all ADA compliant. That obviously increases the cost of the unit, but we use the state bid process to get a reasonable cost vehicle. So I believe the last ones we purchased were around $68,000 for the vans, but we're only covering 20% of that. That certainly has put us behind more because, you know, we're having to contribute $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 toward a vehicle, right? Otherwise, you know, we would, having to buy a vehicle outright ourselves without that grant would still be more money than like buying a minivan, right? We just went and bought a minivan new.
I understand.
It would be more than what we're paying for the ADA one. So but what has happened is still our 20% share as those costs have increased to buy a minivan, right? It's put us further behind, right?
Yeah, but we're not making up any difference on that through the brown cab company. We're just buying the vehicle outright for them, and they're operating it, they're fixing it if it needs repair.
Yeah, so they're doing all the maintenance on the vehicles. They're doing the oil changes. They're keeping all. There's so many requirements that they have to follow
Right.
for maintaining the vehicles and operating the service because it's federally funded that they take care of all that.
I guess I just like to say I'm grateful to be in this position, you know, make these decisions, looking at numbers and what's best for the city. I am reminded that if someone is looking at this, obviously there's a hearing, no decision being made, but someone, you know, this could be someone's position that maybe after work or, you know, this is where they drive and this could eliminate, you know, a number of hours for an individual. I don't know who that individual is, but I guess I just want to say, for the record, this is, if this were to be, hours were to be cut back, it is not a statement on their worth as a person, as their, you know, we're not looking at someone's driving, you know, again, value. This is simply what we need to be looking at to run this smartly for the city.
This will be my last question. And I don't need the answer tonight. When did we start with brown cab, and when did we start losing money in the taxi service?
Oh, I would have to look back at the financial statements, but when I was here 4 years ago, we were $180,000 in the hole.
I think it was in the 90s.
The brown cab has been
With us for that, yeah,
the
okay,
the entirety of our service.
okay.
If I recall, last time we went out to bid, brown cab was significantly less expensive than any other bid that, or the only other bid that we
Yeah.
got. We only received 2 bids at that point.
Yep.
So this public hearing that we're going to have, brown cab has been give an input into this?
Yeah,
They understand what you're looking at?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor to hold a public hearing at the next common council meeting dated January 27th. Any further discussion on that motion?
Do you need to state what the time would be?
During the meeting.
During the meeting, like when we have done other public.
So at the start of a,
During the meeting.
During.
I'm not sure where we're falling in the agenda, but it'll be during.
Do we have any publication in the paper about this?
We are required to publicize it, so I will work on that, yes. We notified DOT.
Any further discussion? Very good. All those in favor of holding a public hearing during the next common council meeting on January 27th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? As approved, we'll have a public hearing during the common council meeting on the 27th. For public, the meeting will start at 7. It will be somewhere on the agenda during that. All right, moving on to project updates and staff reports. Public Works, anything for us? You always have something for us.
I'll just give you an update on the building. As of last week, the foundation is done. They were supposed to start setting the precast panels, the tilt-up precast walls today. The weather is hindering that, so I'm hoping that probably Thursday, maybe tomorrow and Thursday, maybe even Friday. But then I'm anticipating a cessation for next week with the low temps. The masonry block walls, if you go down there, you'll see some interior concrete block walls have been installed. They're about 90% complete. The rest will be done after the building is closed. Structural steel should start being delivered towards the end of this week or the beginning of next week. And then beginning of February, if they're where they're supposed to be at with the precast, the tilt-up precast, the exterior office walls will start being framed towards the beginning of February. So, barring this weather, we're actually ahead of schedule right now. So, that's about all I have.
Thank you. Any updates from the library?
nothing to report at this time?
Thank you. PD? Naomi?
We will be having an election on February 18th. The reason for the election is because we have 3 runners for the superintendent of public instruction. So we will be having that here in the common council. Absentee ballots should be going out, I believe, on the 28th and 29th of this month.
Thank you. Adam?
Just a couple things. We did have a meeting today at the library for the library project with PRA. So we're working through design and getting things, have another meeting in a couple weeks. So we're just getting that regular schedule and getting information to the designers to put together the final design. We hope that by mid-February-ish to have some report, more formal report out to the council and to the library board. Housing study record is finishing that up. It's taking a little bit longer, just incorporating the data and information and getting everything into the comprehensive report. There's a housing forum for Fond du Lac County being hosted by Vision Greater Fond du Lac in, I believe, 2 weeks. So we'll be attending that and sharing hopefully some information with developers and others regarding the housing study and needs in Ripon. 2024, just kind of a summary of housing program that, the housing programs that we've implemented, kind of the utilization of them. So the Ripon First program, which is a first-time home buyer grant, we did award 2 of those. So a younger couple and a young man both bought their first homes in Ripon, and we helped with a $5,000 grant for each. So we still have 1 more available, and if there's additional demand for that, I will come back to the council. Exterior home repair, we got around $21,000 out for the year. That program is on hold, And then Sanmar, we did award 5 for 2024 grants, and so far this year, we have authorized the issuance of 10, and we have 5 sold already, so there will be 5, at least 5 more homes built in Sanmar this coming year. So some success there. We also had an article regarding the East Town project in the business news regarding housing. So I sent that out to the council, I encourage you to read that quick. And then Northwestern Trail Lot, which was on the corner of Cass and Berlin Road out there, the city is the apparent high bidder for that property. So we're waiting for the county to transfer that at their next finance meeting.
This actually maybe goes back to old business we talked about, but what was the final bid on that lot? Because I saw a number in the check register that wasn't the number we talked about.
So we had to put 10% down.
Okay.
So that's what we had to do. Yep. So it's 10% of the amount.
Any questions for Al? No. All right. So moving on, I do have a appointment for tonight. This will be for the Community Development Authority. I would like to appoint Abigail McMerrill to this position for a term that would expire in 2020.
Is this the last appointment for that to fill the seat?
One more.
I'll move to accept the appointment.
Motion by Mark, second by Ellen.
Could we get a background?
Yeah, Abigail is a newer resident to Ripon, moved here, I believe, within the last 6 months. She grew up in Oshkosh, I think it was TW Oshkosh. She works for the Wisconsin Department of Administration. In their, I can't remember what her actual title is.
The actual title is Continuous Improvement Program Coordinator.
So she, she's interested in getting involved in the community. Moved actually to Ripon from, I believe, Ireland, where she was going to grad school and studying, and her and her husband live on Woodside. They bought a house on Woodside. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any further question or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Abigail McMerrill to the Community Development Authority, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Thank you. Comments from council or future agenda items? There are none. This time I will seek a motion to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We'll be discussing a development agreement for 433 Scott Street, as well as amendment to a development agreement with SC Squarity Clothing, and reviewing closed session minutes from December 10th.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Ellen. All those in favor of adjournment to closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll adjourn to closed session. We'll take 5 minutes.